And welcome to the Tech Talks today. And I'm excited to bring Dhruv today.
Hi
He's
everyone.
this,
Yeah.
so he's the CEO of Middleware, and Middleware is a company which helps track developer productivity. And we would be talking about, or rather, diving deep into engineering efficiency and the future of development with Dhruv today. So, Dhruv, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ramesh. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm really excited to have the conversation today. And developer productivity is very close to my heart because I have been a developer since my school days, and I love the joy of building something. And when I became a manager later in my life, I realized that uh, the joy of building in an organization is very difficult to achieve because of so much process, red tape, and so many blockages at every step to build something which blocks the flow of like
The
the
flow
true
of thought,
builder and
I
like,
would say.
right. So
Right.
and that really bothered me, both as a developer, as a manager, and that was my motivation to start Middleware, to help builders to keep building rather than answering
But
to multiple follow-ups or multiple process questionnaires that what are they doing, and so that they can actually work on their stuff.
exactly. I mean, today in this time and age, when things are developing so fast, every manager also wants a lot of insight into what's actually going on, how to look into it, or is developer actually being efficient? Is like because in these days, rather since last 15-20 years, the developer hours are actually very costly. So whatever team anybody would go to, they would always find that okay, I want developer time for getting this thing, and that's when suddenly those conversations strike up. Let's first figure out whether we need it or not because developer hours are costlier. That kind of also explains why developers are paid a lot more than any other profession
Yeah,
in a company.
yeah, definitely.
So
Because I mean, whatever the like, unlike the brick and mortar world, if you build something from technology, that's a perception as well as a reality, then it is very easy to scale it up faster. So
right.
any cost that you're putting on a developer is essentially, and if you are able to scale it well, then you are still paying a minuscule cost of what it is on a scale, right? So then the cost of building it or the cost of R&D is very small. At the same time, I think I'll address the perspective from a different lens, that managers are worried about developer productivity because they're very costly. I think managers are put to worry about this. Their only job of any manager in the tech company, in the tech team, is to ensure that the developers are able to do uh, their job well. So the real heroes in any tech team are actually the developers. The leadership, the middle managers, the directors, the VP, the CTO, they are just there to ensure that everyone is on track and is able to execute everything properly. So the managers are supposed to worry. They should worry.
That's their job.
Yeah, that's it.
Uh, totally. So, which is, I mean, so in a sense, productivity, like you said, is about delivering high quality code, right?
I don't,
With
I
respect
don't,
to
I don't agree to it.
developers.
But you continue your line of thought.
So I believe that productivity is delivering high quality code in an efficient manner, so that the process of developing a product or a project essentially becomes better and faster, and there are lesser reworks on, or lesser turnaround times in the subsequent follow-ups. How
Correct.
would you go
Correct.
about this?
So I think, just so that we don't offend anyone in the tech, like fraternity and the tech teams, the developers and the managers, let's assume that instead of engineering team, you were running a restaurant. Okay. And now, The job of the restaurant or the job of the kitchen is done by the developers. Every time there is a customer in the restaurant, they ask for a dish. The developer's job is to bring that dish on the table. Now, it depends on the business, on what clientele or what class of business, what class of customers you're serving. Everyone wants food, but depending on where the business is, your code quality, your the way you are presenting the dish, the way you have made the dish, it changes, right? If you are a dhaba, then also you'll serve the dish. If you are a normal restaurant, then also you'll serve the dish, and if you are a fine dine, then also you'll serve the dish. So it really depends on what kind of customer you're serving. So that would define how forgiving your tech can be. But the one thing which is common across is that you have to serve the food, whatever is ordered, and you have to serve that within time. And for me, that's productivity. So, regardless of which kind of customer you're serving, whether it is B2C, B2B, your job as a kitchen is to give people food. People are hungry, you need to give food, and you need to deliver that fast. So, whatever you are committed to, which is the orders that people are doing, you have to serve them, and that's productivity. If you're not able to do that, then you're not productive. So, imagine a restaurant which has 100 orders but can only do 10, then the restaurant is not productive,
Right.
right?
Right. Exactly. So
And
if
and I'll
it,
give you a flip example as well. Let's say you have a chef which like who cooks amazing Thai food, amazing finesse, but the customers are only looking for Italian food. They don't want Thai food at all. Now the chef is very efficient, very skilled, serves Thai food very fast, but doesn't do Italian at all. Then despite their productivity, despite their high quality, despite whatever badges they are owning, the business still fails, right? So it is very important to know that no matter how efficient you become, no matter how much you do, you can't govern the success of the business.
right. But at the end of the day, we are not talking about success of business, right? We are talking
Correct.
about
Correct.
whether or not you can quickly bring it out. So I like your example of chef actually. If somebody is actually good at building, like making food in a particular or particular kind of food, uh, they will be able to make other kinds of food, but probably not as fast.
Yes.
And the same productive person will be viewed differently from one
Correct.
lens to another.
Correct.
So, but when okay, let me go a little differently about it. Let's talk about engineering efficiency now. And I believe your experience also, like if you can also let viewers know about your experience and how you see engineering efficiency when people are tackling multiple responsibilities. Developers are tackling, say, front end, back end, or a little bit of product management sometimes.
Right.
Uh, and that's when we are talking about people or developers working in a startup kind of an ecosystem.
Correct.
However, and how does it, like, change when people are working in larger companies?
Hmm. Very good question. Just as a primer for the audience, so I have been fortunate to have worked in companies of all sizes, um, from starting like a company which doesn't exist, to writing like code as an intern there, to working in a scaling up startup, to managing teams, 30 35 members in India, outside of India, like in Europe as well. And in my journey, and now of course I'm working with a lot of customers for their engineering efficiency who are enterprises themselves. So I think efficiency is always a gray area whenever someone looks at it, and that primarily is because every person is looking from their own perspective. A developer is looking at their own perspective that, hey, I'm doing my own job, I'm putting the hours, then why don't you call me efficient? A manager looks at a team, a CTO looks at an org, right? And a CEO might look at an engineering team very differently. So engineering efficiency hence is uh, dependent on who is defining it and for whom you are defining it. So when you are talking about efficiency in general, right? So I'll try to answer most of the questions in a first principle manner first, and then we can join the dots back to engineering and try to go tactical uh, on how our viewers who are, let's say, developers or senior developers in their own organizations, they can start defining that efficiency, right? So we also have some comments flowing in, so we'll address those as well while answering the question. So efficiency in very simple terms is that, can you build your thoughts or ideas into product efficiently in the least cost possible, right? And cost is defined by the person who is doing the job, the resources they're using to do the job, and the time they're taking, right? All the things, you multiply the cost of the resource, cost of the person, and that's the answer of efficiency. Now for a developer, that efficiency is how much time do I have to spend while waiting for someone. For example, you are done with your code, but now you are waiting for the reviewer to review your code, and that reviewer takes 2 days. So now 2 days you don't have anything to do, so you waited for that time. Sometimes you want to test your changes, but the environment is not ready. So the environment blocking you is a time wasted, is a wastage of time. So that's where your efficiency losses are going. So anything that eats up your time by blocking you or by making you wait is taking your efficiency away. A lot of times you might miss context switches, that your Slack pings, your um, team meetings, a lot of follow-up calls are pulling you away from a deep work session. So if you are able to sit down and do your code and achieve whatever your to-do list is in time, then you're efficient, then you're productive actually, right? Productivity and efficiency are often interchangeably used, but productivity for me is, are you able to do what you commit to? And if that answer is yes, you're productive. Over time, can you do it in a cheaper manner, can you do it faster? And that's being efficient. So when you want to grow in your career, you want to do more in the same amount of time, and that's how you grow up the ladder as well. And very quickly, for a team level, uh, it is about how soon and efficiently with quality is my team able to deliver uh, the projects that we have committed to, right? So there are a lot of frameworks which I hope we'll talk in the latter half of the call. So for example, there's a framework called Dora metrics. So that framework talks about how efficient your delivery pipeline is. So for a manager, they can start using these frameworks like Dora to check, are we able to deliver with a lot of speed, but not spoiling the quality, right? And in a similar way, the CTO has a different question, but I'll pause on that and give you the room to address some or bring up the questions from the chat as well.
Yeah. So I was about to go about that, right? So first, let's like try and understand what Abhishek is saying. Essentially, like how can teams measure productivity beyond just output metrics?
Correct.
So, how like I can see this question in variety of lights, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, what are the output metrics one can think about? One is, of course, how many releases have you done, like, or how many features have you shipped, vis-a-vis how fast are you shipping, or what? Sometimes, like you just touched upon Dora metrics. Sometimes teams have Dora metrics defined as their um reasoning for defining product developer productivity. So, what all things or use cases have you seen with your current company?
Right. It's a good question. And so I have some strong takes on output metrics because, as I mentioned, right, if you're a Thai chef and you're very proficient, but the uh, restaurant audience wants Italian, then you will fail no matter what, right? So, measuring any output metrics for a developer productivity or developer efficiency, or using those output metrics to, let's say, appraise them, uh, won't help you because they are not affecting your business outcome, which is very different from, let's say, a sales team, where the number of calls or the number of deals you close are directly impacting the business. And that's where this whole divide comes in. Now, for a team productivity, again, it comes down to very simple things. Are we able to deliver what we are committing to? So, if you are planning a sprint, are there spillages? If you are doing a large project, are we on track or not? And if we are not on track, then why are the cases, right? So what are the causes? And then you drill down further to find out those metrics, like, is our spillage under control? Now, if a person is raising a PR, are we reviewing it in time? Are we churning through the PRs well in time or not? And over time, if you're able to deliver what you commit to in the capacity that you have. For example, if you have a sprint, right? A sprint has 10 days, and a person working for the entire sprint has a capacity of 10 days. Now, you can look at it in two ways. A, you can plan the sprint with 10 days of work for that person. Now, uh, if the person is doing, uh, let's say, 10 days of work, but only completing half the work assigned to them, then they are not productive because they committed 10 points, but they are doing only 5 points. That means that we need to help them remove any wait time, any block time, any surprises that they got while the development of it. So I think for Abhishek's question, um, it depends really on what your team is struggling with. I would start from the very first question of uh, completion rates on what they are committing to in projects and the bugs that they are tracking, and then go down on where they are struggling with.
So, so before going to the next question, I'd just like to kind of also ask you, like, can we kind of explain to our viewers a little bit more deeply about what are Dora metrics, so
Of
to speak?
course, of course. So Dora metrics talks about four key metrics, right? So Dora metrics says that we have surveyed thousands of companies, and in those thousands of companies, we divided businesses in two parts. One, which business is doing well and which business is not doing so well. By analyzing businesses who are doing well, we found out that these four key metrics perform the same in their engineering teams. So they essentially say that while it is very difficult to correlate engineering effort to business, but we have seen in the retrospective of the past that businesses who do well have very good Dora metrics, and businesses who don't do well have poor Dora metrics. Now they call Dora metrics as four keys. The first one is lead time for changes. Lead time for changes means the moment you start working on something, how long do you take to deliver that to the customer? So, time from your first commit to your PR opening to your PR getting approved, merged, and deployed, that whole journey is defined as lead time for changes, which essentially means how quick are you in delivering that change. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're working on a large ticket or a small ticket. If you work on small changes, you can break down the large project or the large ticket in smaller chunks. If you break it down in smaller changes, then how quick are you, right? The second key metric is deployment frequency. Awesome that you are able to ship changes faster. But if your team blocks the deployment, that okay, we'll do on weekends or we'll do twice in a month, whatever the cause is. But your customer will wait for your changes. Sometimes the customer is waiting for your bug fix, sometimes the customer is waiting for your feature request. So deployment frequency defines how quickly can you deploy to the customer. Is it on demand? Is it like a few weeks later? How soon can you reach out to the customer? So these two metrics govern the throughput of your team. How quick are we reaching to the customer? Now, when we talk about speed, a lot of times people start cutting corners, and hence they introduce two more metrics. So the two more metrics are change failure rate. So despite that you go so many times to the customer by deployment frequency, how many times do you ship a bad quality system or a bad quality code, which results in a failure such that you need to either revert it or hot fix the system, right? A lot of times you'll see that the system goes down, there's downtime, or there's a massive bug that impacts a lot of customers. For that, the metric is change failure rate. Out of the times, out of X times that you deployed your system, how many times did you fail? And that's called change failure rate. Now, when the failure happens, it's okay, right? Software industry failures are bound to happen because you're trying to move fast. How quick are you able to respond to those failures and resolve it for the customer? So the last metric is called mean time to recovery. So these four metrics, the first two for throughput, the last two for quality, combined make the Dora metrics, which is now a kind of de facto framework um, to see your team's DevOps efficiency.
Exactly. And I mean, thanks a lot for explaining it to everyone. So, and a lot of teams, like you said, right, are adopting Dora metrics these days. But I've also like came across some sort of concerns about over optimization, right? Which is, I guess, somewhat what Abhishek was also saying, right? So, what's your take on finding the right balance?
It is so again, I'll give a real life example, right? So there's no right way of wearing a suit, right? Or there's no right fitting for a suit. Every suit fits in bespoke to the person wearing it. The same way, the balance of what metrics and what should be the value of those metrics is bespoke to your team and your business. uh, Earlier I used to give this example of a chipset company, but now I can't say it because now they are the ones soaring high on the markets. But there are like legacy companies which are okay with releasing something in 1 year, 2 years, right?
Right.
But now a Zomato, let's say, right, or a middleware or a dev bytes, they have to deliver every day. They have to deliver very fast.
Absolutely. Fast
So
and
it depends. It depends. You can't just copy the values. You can copy the guideline, which is the
right,
Dora matrix,
right,
and similarly Scrum and all those school of thoughts. But values and the speed are bespoke to your business.
great. So let's pick another question here. Like, what advice would you give to teams who want to accelerate efficiency without increasing burnout? I guess, or in a certain sense, as a precursor to this question, we can also talk about probably how Dora metric or does Dora metric actually help you track burnout?
That's a very good question. I don't think it does, because it doesn't talk about the individuals involved in the team. It talks about the team overall. So it doesn't track the burnout at all. I think for tracking burnout, it is essential to understand the work distribution. As we say in middleware, we have a couple of views in middleware as well, which tells about how is the work distributed within the team. A lot of times you will find people who are like delivering up to their capacity, but they have a lot of work on their shoulders because they are the only ones who will be able to do it. While there are also team members who do not have much assigned to them, right? Uh,
but have the capacity to
but
lead.
have the capacity to do it. So now it is essential for the managers and the teams to understand that they should not lose the forest for the trees. They should not react to every business urgency and put the load on that one developer because they will get burnt out. Instead, they should always keep their team balanced and nurture every talent so that their team is, risk free. They don't have one person failure delivering the team, like taking the team to the finish line.
Absolutely. I mean, that is more important, right? I mean, as long as team is balanced, like if say if in a vehicle, if all the four wheels are moving at a different speed, the vehicle will move with the wheel running slowest.
You'll you'll topple. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly the whole point. So, so everybody has to move in sync in a certain sense. That makes a lot of that brings a lot of stability in approaching products and projects as well. Um, so yeah, then let me ask. Okay, so this is a question I will pick up later. Um, so yeah, coming back to our point here, uh, with AI coming into picture these days, the productivity in qualitative terms has increased. Developer productivity in qualitative terms has increased. So how do you go about, talking about AI generated code and the impact on productivity, and has it actually increased or not?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think everyone's now afraid. In fact, I was speaking to a couple of developers through this week, and every developer has kind of a worry that AI is going to take my job, and that's how the media and the VCs are talking about it. And it's not just the media and the VCs. I mean, we all use Chat GPT or anything similar on a daily basis to generate, let's say, a LinkedIn post, or generate an email, or generate something, right? And it does it really well. But the thing is, especially when it comes to the code, there's Copilot, and supposedly GPT has made like miles of improvement in generating code. But the Dora research, which happened in 2024 recently, showed a very surprising result. So I'll cover like two major insights that we found out in the Dora report this year. One, that despite increasing job satisfaction, despite increasing that AI has impacted my productivity and made me more productive, the time that developers spent on delivering the same work has not changed. The toil has
Oh.
increased. So, because earlier developers were doing some valuable work, right? They were writing code, they were thinking about things, but now GPT is thinking about the valuable things, which is the code design, which is everything that is like the crux of the problem, and developers are actually fixing the mess. So while AI has enormous potential, and I'm sure it will rock the world, uh, from what we see in the surveys, the state of AI today, people are feeling like more toil than value from the AI. Of course, they're facing value, but they are still spending the same amount of time to deliver the code. Uh, the second insight that we learned from that survey was, while the speed has increased, right, but the stability has decreased, because a lot of times AI might have missed some context for your business, for your code, and that stability has many layers of impact on your customers, on your business. So while all kudos and credit to the progress that we have made as a fraternity in AI, I think still the developer toil has not decreased, and the stability has decreased for sure.
So when we talk about stability in this term, in this perspective of Dora, I mean, does it also not point to the fact that lesser teams have things like TDD in place or effective tests in place?
Right.
So if it also points to that, that in a way is kind of nudging the developer community to be more, uh, what do you say, for lack of better word, best practices developer as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I think. Uh, I mean, there's one question from Sudhir, which I mean, now I think my answer would also address. Uh, so the aspects, the aspects of the software development which will not change will be to ensure the stability, will be to ensure that uh, we get what we are planning for, right? So as you mentioned, like TDD or DDD, any sort of paradigm focuses on one thing, that how do I ensure a I get what I'm wanting, b how do I ensure that it sustains, it is able to sustain changes, it is able to scale with time, and that aspect won't change from a human angle. And you're absolutely right that the developers will have to make sure that there are best practices in place to ensure that the GPT generated code does not um, like
Fall off the
fall off the cliff or fall apart, or break down your system. And that's why the toil has increased, because there's so
right.
much code that's being generated that you have to kind of guard it up with those best practices. So as a
So actually,
developer, you still have to learn what are the best principles and ensure that your code, maybe your prompt is not telling the full context, and maybe the prompt cannot even tell the whole context to it. You ensure that the designs are correct, and yeah, the clean code and the clean architecture principles are being followed there.
so there is an interesting thing also. Like yesterday on Dev Bytes, one of the most liked stories was about some study which was pointing that a lot of developers, junior developers who are using AI-driven code, don't really understand how to code, and the code creation capability is going down. So, I mean, but I'm pretty sure that if they are junior developers, they must be employed somewhere. So their Dora metrics must have increased. So I'm actually quite amazed these days that how such things are going to evolve the landscape, and what all efforts are we able to take from a management standpoint to track such uh, AI world dependent insights, or track such AI world dependent insights. Because at the end of the day, rather than just being productive, a person also needs to grow
Yeah,
so that the system or the company to which they are contributing to
yeah.
grows.
I think so. In my opinion, you don't need to track AI tool usage or insights. It is the same as saying that if people were using IntelliJ to code, were you tracking IntelliJ insights so far or not? Right. So it is just a tool. You were not tracking Google search. You were not tracking, let's say, any other tool that they were using. You were not tracking Vim usage, terminal usage. So it is just a tool which helps you do your job better. That means that you can do more in one day that you could have done earlier. So for the managers, the job hasn't changed. Only the quantum of change that they can bring in has changed, because the quantum a developer can deliver has changed. So a developer growth, of course, is now has now better benchmarks, better milestones than what the world had without GPT in place, right? So now you can expect a junior developer to understand how to use GPT to build something, so they can build out a few things, and a and now the starting point has changed, so now the ladder just moves all the way up. And definitely you will be able to do the same amount of work in lesser people, but it has never happened that if you are able to do same amount of work with lesser people, then you would like to do more work. It's never that you want to do the same amount of work and reduce the number of people. So for the managers, their job is the same. It is to help each individual get better. So Dora Metrics, as we are talking about as well, right? So Dora Metrics has this motto of get better at getting better. So you might not be the best in whatever metric, but you
So
should be
true.
the best improver across the metrics.
I mean, totally. This is how it has to work. Get better at getting better. Otherwise, you will lag behind.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So, let's switch gears a little bit. Um, what is the most overrated metric in engineering?
What is the most?
Overrated metric in coding, so to speak.
Line of code.
I still remember the first interview I ever gave. Uh, uh, I explained some project I did, and then the first question that I was asked was, "How many lines of code was that?" And I
Exactly.
was like, blank.
Yeah.
Who's seeing lines of code? Why do you need to see lines of code? And at the end of the day, lines of code is, I believe, that metric which helps you understand in a certain way how much complexity you are probably dealing with rather than how much complex your code is, because the underlying assumption is that you understand how to code efficiently.
Yeah.
But that can, I mean, it's a big pile of mush.
Yeah,
One can say this, or one
I
can
think it
say
is
that.
just irrelevant. Because a with time and the language capabilities, you will get modules, you will get functions which let you do more with less. And that has been like that. What else the technology is for? There are revolutions, like industrial revolution happened so that you can do more with less. Then programming language started from binary, then became assembly, then the high level, they used to call C++ as high level languages, right? Imagine C++ and Python. And now if a developer is starting up, it'll be all gibberish to them, because now the real high level or the highest level for us now is GPT, because now you're talking to it in plain English.
Is yeah.
It's very, it's very declarative, um, in the tonality of it, that I want this or build me this, and you don't have to worry about it. The same way, if you're writing a for loop, you didn't have to worry about how that for loop is going. uh, so the line of code will always keep on decreasing. uh, as
And
you
in a
know.
certain sense, it is also kind of uh, going towards more like an agentic introduction within the coding ecosystem. Like all you have to do is let the agent know, it will figure out, brainstorm, and then
Why don't you help us understand what do you mean by an agent here? Because a lot of times, because of the name agent, people might, or people who are starting up might think about it as, any character or movie character which is able to do everything. Why don't you give a little glimpse of what do you mean by agentic and what do you mean by an agent?
so in the simplest terms, I'd always call agent as a piece of prompting coupled with certain tools which can work in a feedback driven manner to help you crystallize an idea or execute an idea in a certain manner, in a defined or described in a simpler manner.
Right.
So essentially, what everybody does is, or at least in current context, in current day and age, if you will sit on something like ChatGPT, or even say, for example, what's this? Another tool, Cursor. So if you'll sit on Cursor or ChatGPT, you'll just give it a set of prompts, and then it will generate a piece of code for you. But the key thing lies in how beautifully you have written the prompt, how much context have you given it, how many edge cases have you been able to write about.
Hmm.
And then comes the step of reasoning and thinking about it, right? What DeepSeek does, what the reasoning models nowadays are doing, and then plugging it back into it. So that's what you are doing. And the moment all those things are automated towards an agent, that's when you would only provide it simpler things like build me a carousel for images,
Correct.
which will run on a WordPress website, and make it as a plugin. This much,
Correct.
by giving this much information, it will assume a bunch of things. So those things is what agent is supposed to bring in, which will help you think through the process and make necessary assumptions.
Correct. So essentially, it is what your different apps or what your different functions used to be, but with a far superior uh, interface to access them. So now, instead of going to, let's say, booking.com, you can have an agent which can book the hotel or the relevant hotel for you, right? Earlier, you used to go to that website, filter out, put in the context, figure out which hotel will work, which location, and whatnot. And now that agent can grab that context from multiple places that or multiple history that it has, and then perform that task for you, right?
Right, absolutely.
So it is an upgrade in the interface that we had. Similar to saying that earlier you used to call a person, then a website came up, and now you could access the website and do the sale. So if someone has watched The Office, there's the whole fight that they have in that episode, that are humans better at sales, or the website will beat them up, right, in sales. And now we are just going one step ahead on that. Do we need to rely on websites, or will people only use agents from now on to access those services?
True.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, I mean, what is, so I guess I'll ask at this point, like, what is your golden advice? What is the golden advice that you would give to developers these days, on, of course, boosting their efficiency or boosting their own efficiency in world of AI, post AI world, how we call
Yeah,
it
I
these
think I think
days.
my advice would be the same, because I have a very how would I say, I have a very raw view on AI, where I'm just considering AI as a great tool. And the job of a software developer is to deliver a product which works for the customer and drives the customer's success. So the job of the software developer is the same. So my advice would be the same, pre and post AI. But of course, use your tools. Um, the advice, I don't want to sound like a career guru giving an advice, but what worked for me really well, and helped me grow up in the ladder as well as the exposure side of things, is that stay keen on understanding what your role is and what will be the next upgrade to your role, and learn those skills quickly. Because in this day and age, where everything is moving so fast, uh, there will be some companies which will be saying that only 10 years of experience will be required to do this and that. uh, Understand what you really want to do. There's another talk that I gave, which helps you figure out, so I call that follow the get the role, the title will follow. So you understand what role works for you, and then work towards, the each skill set for it. You can take your manager's help, you can take some mentor's help in getting better at it. For example, if you want to become a manager, understand the role of a manager, understand what they do, and start doing that role already in your organization. Try to do that role already, and they will have no other option but to promote you. Or even if they don't promote you, you will be ready for that title at any other place. So that's the way to grow faster in your career. Growing faster does not only bring you money, because I think I was growing up the ladder in the era where the salaries were not soaring crazily as they did, let's say, in COVID times. But what it gives you is a larger perspective. It helps you understand the larger image. It helps you get ready for any ambitious endeavors that you might have, and that has really helped me in, let's say, starting up my own company. So that'll be my advice.
And for those of the viewers, like those viewers who'd like to learn about engineering efficiency, um, or how to stay ahead, you
Yeah.
know, like who was uh, Aditya was asking, right? So, what are the things that you would recommend for them to work about?
First of all, follow your page, your dev bytes, to learn about that. And yeah,
Thank you
for
very much for that,
of course,
Dhruv.
and yeah, I think uh, you will be able to find out most of the things organically. There's Hacker News, there's your page for engineering efficiency, and if you're really interested in the subject, you can follow me, Middleware HQ, on LinkedIn. Please search for us, and we keep posting a lot of insights, a lot of tactical details on how you can actually leverage some practice or some tooling to enhance your productivity and your team's productivity. So that will be helpful.
Great, great. So again, Dhruv, thanks a lot for your insights. Yeah, really appreciate what you guys are doing here.
Thank you.
And yes, and again, thanks a lot for joining us today.
Very
I
nice, man.
believe
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me.
uh, it's all right. So yeah, thank you all for joining us today, and we'll keep working behind the scenes to bring more such interesting talks for you all. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.